Okay, getting on to the specific questions, there's going to be one each for you today, so let's get on with that. So the first one is to Ansis. Sensors and high-speed, low-latency networks are a fundamental part of future port operations. We all know that. What will the smart ports of the future look like, and what are the challenges in getting there?
Yeah, this is a fundamental question. It's like a vision into the future. Of course, I don't see the sort of flying ships or something which we can see in scientific movies. But reality, of course, is, as you said, port operations become more and more complex. So that is, I would say, the most complex point in the transportation logistics chain. And if we look maybe a decade ago, a little bit more, decade or 15 years ago from now, many things at that time still were fragmented. Also, the technologies were there, and also mobile technologies were at the high fly. But still, there was information exchanges were fragmented. Today, it's kind of the must thing for many operations. So the ports are not anymore just the spots with the borders on a map. So our activities and our information exchange goes far beyond what is the normal port borders. So that means also the society within the city and the country. That means also all aspects of security. Now, let's say the military dimension, which is also maybe a time ago, it lived on their own. So military was military and the civil was civil. So now it becomes, with different synergies, it becomes cross points also with the military point. And what is needed on this is technology. So in order to be effective and in order also to look into the efficient and green challenges what are on our table, that means that we should use more and more technologies in order to help and be efficient. Okay, the sensors and low latency networks, maybe it's a specific technical term, but in reality what we are talking about machine communication, meaning that different technological points, being that STS cranes, being that VTS operator center in a port. There's a lot of data which needs to be exchanged through among different institutions. And also as a port and ports in Europe and Riga as well. So we are looking and working into spatial planning. That means that digitizing of different layers of physical infrastructure in the port. So that's not only the water side, but also hinterland, in order to know precisely whether from the point of the maintenance, whether from the point of exploitation. So what we have, at what state is each and every technological point, being that key wall, the structure of the key wall, depths of the canal, communication networks, physical communication networks, cables, etc., etc. And in this point, of course, the more layers you have, so the more effect of the technology you will have. And this will, I think, the future port will be something most probably between okay, the container business, I would say, is the most technologically developed in this sense, because they needed this information exchange at the very beginning, but also in all other cargo modes and cargo exchanges, including the hinterland and railway network, it's become more and more important. And in order to be faster, to be greener, to be more efficient, to work with new fuels, which some are on the table and some are just in the air, I think this is absolutely fundamental thing.
Fantastic. So there's a huge amount of data, and managing that is going to be a critical element of all of that. So we'll get on to that in a little while. So to Timo, related to smart ports are obviously future smart shipping and transport solutions. What are the likely technologies that will be used to make shipping more efficient and environmentally friendly? And what are the challenges of those being adopted?
I would start, what would be the first ones? First ones, the one we have tested already. Yes. So we had very promising results on testing a 40 tons front loader with 5G standalone network. It was operated remotely with a professional driver on a cockpit away from the machine. It was delays. For example, the delays on that machine was next to nothing. They calculated that even a race car could have been driven remotely. Well, in theory. But that was the first and the best solution at the moment. Of course, we have tested, secondly, on container inspection, high-resolution cameras, which are taking pictures from the containers, reporting directly to our operator, etc., to pick up the faulty containers before they leave the port area. And thirdly, security-wise, we tested drone nest, operating drone for the fast recognition of some kind of target on the port area. Okay. It was also very good result. But what comes to future, well, remotely operated ships, they are coming someday. Of course, first they are sailing with limited crew on board and some kind of remote operating center which is controlling and helping the small crew on board. And eventually, one time, there will be no crews on board. I see it. They will start between dedicated lines from one pier to another pier. For example, some short sea passage, but it will be the start. Okay. But we will see what comes later on. Ansis mentioned smart ports. Well, one thing I can see is 24/7 condition checking on machinery to prevent delays. Because, for example, container spreaders, I believe it's the first thing to cause delays, and if it's surveillance all the time, 24/7, it could save the time by making possible to react immediately when the damage comes. Well, perhaps someday we will see some kind of automated container carrier also operating in snow in -20 degrees, but we will see.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Do you see fully autonomous cargo ships?
Sorry?
Do you see fully unmanned autonomous cargo ships as something in the future, or is it more to do with short shipping routes and operations within ports?
It will start with short routes, but who knows? Technology goes so high speed ahead. So
it does.
We will see.
Thank you, Timo. So we've mentioned a couple of emerging technologies there. There's obviously the marine autonomy piece. There's the remote control elements. There's clean propulsion. Any of those sorts of technologies are going to require regulations. So Lukasz, are there regulatory frameworks in place to allow these already, or do they need to be developed?
Yeah, that's a very valid question, because I would say with that normally industry tries to embark certain journey when they are sure that it is going to bring money. So yes. If there is a risk, if they will have to invest a lot and they are not sure that there will be a return one day, of course they are not that keen to do it unless they get some fundings, etc. In terms of framework, this regulatory part, there is already certain experience with implementing new technologies, modern technologies. I can talk now from position here of European Maritime Safety Agency, which we are not actually putting legislation in place, but we are quite much involved in that process, both at EU, but also at the global level. So at EU, we are providing the technical assistance to European Commission, and quite often we are bringing, let's say, ideas for new legislation. But when we talk about EU, we can talk about EU ports, we can talk about EU flagships, we can talk eventually about ships of different foreign flags coming to EU ports. But as you are all aware, maritime sector is a global business, and maritime transport is a backbone of a global trade. So I'm not sure if you are aware, but the shipping industry is responsible for shipping more than 90% of global trade. So it's quite a big value. And for this, when we think about something to be implemented, let's say, at the bigger scale, the global scale, there is a need to work with the organization called International Maritime Organization, because this is the organization that normally puts in place requirements for the ships, for the ports that are implemented worldwide. And now going a bit out of the procedure, so how actually the legislative process is being done, I will maybe give you some examples of practical implementation. So normally, every implementation of new technology, I would say it starts with a use case. So you need to answer the question what you actually want to achieve, how you want to achieve. And here I would split this into ways of touching it. So one is this, what we call the top-down approach. So you have a decision at high level. We want to go this way. It can be either political decision, it can be a decision coming from some, as a consequence of something. And then normally you come to the industry and you say, yes, we need to implement this, please provide a solution. Maybe as an example, I believe everyone here recall 11 September 2001. Attack in US, and then you can ask what does it have with maritime. Actually it had, so the system called long range identification and tracking system, which was implemented by IMO I think around 2006, it was a consequence of that attack. So at that time US said, you know, we had an attack from the air. We don't know, maybe one day there will be a big tanker entering into the city and destroying half of the city. So they said we need to be aware and we need to be able to track the ships coming to our coast. So at that time, there was this plan of having the global tracking system via satellite of all ships above 300 gross tonnage. That at the beginning started with the US, who said we would like to have a visibility of ships which are 1,000 nautical miles of our coast, and we would like to see all of them coming, what they are doing, etc. But they clearly understood that they cannot implement it only in US coast, but they have to go broader. So that's why they came to IMO, they discussed with all the countries at the Maritime Safety Committee, and in the end ended up as an update to Chapter 5 of SOLAS Convention. And nowadays we have all the ships equipped with LRIT, they are sailing and this communication is in place. But we have also other examples, which I think this is the place eventually for the industry to step in, which we can call is this bottom-up approach, which suddenly you may think about something important and you can start with implementation, let's say, even at very little scale. It can be at the scale of a port, of a region, of a country, and then for this, there are many funds which are being provided, especially here in Europe from EU, that the industry together with port, with maritime administration, they can apply for funds and they can provide some examples of use of new technologies. 5G could be an example on how certain use case, let's say, can be completed. We have had recently a situation in our agency, which we were running since 2018, a project which is not that much related to a port, but it's more related to the coastal station, when suddenly they said that they found a place where the reporting formalities can be simplified, the administrative burden can be reduced. Because what we notice, we have at the moment 17 ship reporting systems adopted by IMO in Europe. And the ships, when going through from, for example, from Spain, let's imagine they go through the Strait of Gibraltar and going to port in Poland or to port in Latvia, they have to go through various systems and they have to report on radio certain information to the coastal station. When we did kind of a comparison, we have noticed that the same information is reported all over again. So, because normally the destination port is not changing. What can change? They may consume some bunkers. Because of certain situation, the destination will not normally change, but the time of arrival may change if they got some problems with the ship or with the weather. But generally, the information can be reused. So we launch a project when we try to build a matrix for all these systems and a platform for sharing this information. We call this project Ship-to-Shore Facilitation, and also we have went a step further. We try to provide an interface to a ship that they are able to electronically submit information, and instead of using radio frequencies, radio communication, they can prepare a report in advance by reusing information already available and submit it. So then they would save a lot of time on reporting formalities, which they could give, for example, for safety of navigation, so for monitoring of situation at sea. So there are various opportunities, and I would say normally, I know for industry the best is possibly if we have some decision at the top and then they are sure that is going to happen. But there is a lot of possibility from coming from some small use case, and if it is found as useful, if it is found as interesting, it can be spread and it can be something big. Again, just to conclude with maritime autonomous surface ships, because this was already put in place. I participated in different forums, in different groups, and I would say communication is one of the biggest problems for implementing MAS at the moment. So I think 5G has an opportunity there. Of course, we have to consider that shipping is not just about port, it goes beyond. So we need to see if the coverage, I heard in the previous panel about low orbiting satellites which are being used. And I believe this is the future, because we need to go further. We need to go beyond the port limits for having this, let's say, a successful story.
Thank you, Lukasz. A lot of really good points there, and I think the sort of commonality of the programs and so on is going to be critical to all of this, because shipping is international. Just touching on the 5G network specifically, and this is a question for Martin at Nokia. 5G would appear to be the answer. Does that statement really hold true? So that's the first question. What are the implications that need to be looked at with regard to 5G networks? And what about connectivity further out? And will we see 5G at sea ultimately?
Okay, so I think I do not have to spend much time on actually motivating the topic why ports, right? I mean, Ansis and Timo have shown this very, very drastically even, right? That the complexity is enormous, and that there is also a good vision going forward that requires investments in technologies, that requires digitalization. Without digitalization, these things won't happen. And efficiency and control over your operations will be hard to achieve, right? So let's take a look at this from a connectivity perspective, right? What do we have in a port? A port is, first of all, it's a pretty free open space, right? And then you find a lot of metal in there. Ships are made out of metal. If I put, a couple of containers on top of each other, you actually create, alleys that are shielded by metal. These are very, let's say, unfriendly environments when we think about radio wave propagation, right? And trying to cover this with Wi-Fi, for example, is pretty much a hopeless exercise. But as the management of interference and coverage is much better in 5G, these networks have actually proven to really do the trick. So we can provide this, continuous coverage in these ports. Even worse, there are a lot of things that are on the move, right, in these ports, and particularly having these connected all the time, no matter where they go, and also, verifying that this connection doesn't break. That is something that we actually can achieve with these networks. So the use cases that have already been mentioned, they are so manifold that you actually need a very advanced technology that we have with 5G to go, for example, from just sensor monitoring to things like automatic steering of the straddle carriers, of the gantry cranes, of the automatic guided vehicles that are on the way in the ports. Then we are looking increasingly into video use cases for observing, monitoring. For example, broken containers can be identified and you can actually get away with your liabilities. We're also looking at perimeter control. And what is also, what's also at my heart and very important is the connected worker, right? The connected worker is more safe, first of all. We can even, monitor, fatigue levels and see that, the industrial athlete, as I also sometimes call them, that they're in good shape. And also the connected worker is more efficient, right? So if he has, at his fingertips communication facilities, also the possibility, for example, to connect to the back office and show, for example, to white-collar workers, what is wrong, then, the processes can be speeded up and we are just faster and more efficient in the undertakings. So all of this can be achieved with 5G networks when we just look at it from a networking perspective. But there's actually a second step, which is equally important, right? Getting everything connected is one thing, but we also need to actually bring in place the right digital platforms that allow us, to onboard technologies now rather quickly. This brings me actually to the topic of what we call the industrial edge. So edge compute inside the port that always keeps on running, that is highly available to get away with outages, for example. That is actually the next step to take. These architectures need to be open. We're talking about software containers for actually monitoring containers. So Kubernetes is for example, a technology that can be applied so that you can very quickly onboard new software algorithms to steer, the problems and, the things that you want to steer inside ports. Open APIs allow you to collect all the data and, to flip back into all these digital twins, make these digital twins alive and give them some real-time flavor. So what we put on top of the connectivity layer is equally important here. So with that said, the 5G, when will we get this on the sea, right? That was the tricky question that you asked me. And when Timo, you said, probably, the autonomous container ship that is sailing the ocean from Europe to Africa or wherever, that is maybe still a couple of years away. I think the connectivity is coming now very fast. And the solution to that problem is called non-terrestrial networks. We know the satellite networks already from some use cases, but what will now be achieved is actually that these satellites, they will directly, put 5G radio beams down there so that you can actually take your ordinary phone and you can actually get connected even when you're in the middle of the ocean. So that, of course, allows, to solve the final puzzle in terms of the real end-to-end supply chain, right? Being able to monitor that even when you're crossing the ocean, you can stay connected. It's about the autonomous container ship that has to be connected, that's for sure. We will monitor it with cameras, and we will actually need all the data in the control room to be able to ensure that it crosses, the ocean safely. And last not least, another future concept that we have also thought through is can we then maybe even include some automatic production onto the container ship, right? That a container ship, for example, it collects the parts from the ports where it starts, and while it then goes to the port where it wants to offload the goods, it can actually get effective and do the final assembly of these goods, right? So we can put in a container size some manufacturing facilities there for this final assembly. So a container ship, the time on a container ship, this valuable asset can be used even to finalize goods and to shorten the time that it takes to deliver them to the end customer. Fantastic opportunities will come soon.
Very good. Some really good points there as well, Martin, and obviously that plays into the Freeport type element if something's being manufactured and brought in. Just touching on that, and final question is to Nikos. What do you see are the key research areas for these 5G-enabled ports?
That's a great question, Rob, but I'll try to answer it as best as I can. Many things that someone can report here. First thing that comes to mind is network reliance and resilience. What we need to do is to research methods, and there's a lot of research efforts in this particular area, to enhance the reliability and the resilience of the 5G networks in smart ports, to counter for failures and disruptions that they are there. Security is of paramount importance. We need to, and we are doing this, to innovate there and suggest, let's say, cybersecurity strategies and take cybersecurity measures to protect not only the port infrastructure, but also the data that they are being generated in this environment. We are talking about vast amounts of data. To protect all this against potential cyber threats. Interconnecting systems is a major research topic. How we can integrate, let's say, 5G to existing systems in the port, and to make sure that we have uninterruptible and seamless communication and collaboration between the various parts of the ecosystem there. Energy efficient technologies is another area that really, with the intensive power that 5G brings, we also see that we have, let's say, an increasing footprint regarding the environment, and we need to find efficient techniques to reduce this environmental impact that 5G has in the environment. Another thing that I would like to mention is autonomous systems. So we are looking into the use of 5G in the development and implementation of autonomous systems in the ports environment, like cranes, for example, or vessels or vehicles. Data analytics and predictive maintenance as well. Algorithms there and data analytics techniques should be implemented to to enhance the performance of the equipment, to extend their life, and result in a better operation overall. And I would like to mention regulatory frameworks as well, which is a very big issue. So a lot of research proposals analyze and propose, let's say, frameworks to effectively regulate, for effective regulation and governance, taking, of course, into account, considering both technical and legal issues there. And let's not forget as well the human-machine interaction. I mean, a lot of studies and projects analyze how humans and machines interact in the port environment. And then we have to also propose and implement best interfaces for most effective operations there. All this and many more are being considered in the proposals and projects that our organization is preparing and participating in. But I would like here just only to note in passing one of our projects, very pertinent to the above mentioned research areas. This is 5G login off, where we have 13 partners operating in 8 countries for 3 years, injecting innovations in the port environment and using 5G technology to improve logistics in the field. And these solutions are being deployed currently in 3 ports. These are Piraeus, Hamburg, and Copperluca. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Nikos. Okay, before we go to questions for the audience, I guess I need a one-word answer to a general question. What does the panel see as the main challenge for future port operations? And I'll start with Ansis.
So would say regulatory framework and financial resources, because one absolutely fundamental thing out of this is it will cost, and it will cost a lot, and many of things we are using now, they needs to be changed, and that means that is an investment.
Okay, cool. Martin?
Digitalization brings new vulnerabilities. We are talking about cyber attacks. We're also talking about the availability of these systems. So diligently managing this, that's from a technology perspective, certainly one of the contributions that we need to take here.
Fantastic. Timo?
I would say, of course, funding is one thing, and also, also when you are building something new into, for example, a port which already functions with full speed, then you have to make everything go smoothly together and without too much interference for the operations.
Okay, fair enough. Lukasz?
Yeah, I will maybe say two words, but they are really much linked one to another. One is harmonization and another is interoperability. Because we already mentioned that it's really a global business, and if we implement solution in one port which is not compatible with another, if we look from the perspective of the ship, it will never work. So, you know, really investing in the harmonization, interoperability, and possibly implementing some international standards when doing this.
Fantastic. And Nikos?
What else is there for me to say? I mean, seriously, my fellow panelists covered everything. Investment, of course, serious investment is needed, and I'm going to discuss it in the framework of 5G. To upgrade the 5G infrastructure of the ports needs serious investment, and to integrate it with the existing infrastructure. Regulatory framework as well. I mentioned it before. It's a big issue, especially in the operation, let's say, of 5G and port operations together. This is a problem too. Security as well. I mentioned it again. With increased connectivity, the security, let's say, threat landscape increases tremendously. And therefore, there is need, as I mentioned earlier, for extra cybersecurity, extra intelligent cybersecurity measures to be taken to counteract these increased risks. So interoperability as well. Various systems, new sensors that we didn't mention at all. All these parts have to be integrated in to form a complete functioning ecosystem. And there is a difficulty as well, as my colleague here mentioned. So I'm not going to add any further.
Thank you. Ansis, I think we're ready to take questions from...
Last minutes on this session, so please do raise your hand if you have a question. We have a microphone in the audience. And while you are thinking of your question, just to follow up on the audience poll question, which read, which aspect of seaport infrastructure management do you believe could benefit the most from the deployment of IoT networks and sensor networks? And the winner is optimizing operations and logistics, followed by improving environmental monitoring and sustainability. And last but not least, increasing efficiency in cargo handling. Absolutely no love for security and surveillance and maintenance and repairs. So you can comment on that if you want, but maybe we have a question in the audience. Yeah, maybe any questions on the poll, on the audience thoughts?
Any thoughts? Who wants to go first? Shall we start the other end? Maybe Nikos this time.
Sorry? No?
Response to the poll questions?
To the poll questions, I'm sorry, I missed that bit. Okay. I think I agree with the prioritization there. And of course, security is, I mentioned twice, I mentioned 3 times, for the 3rd time, is a serious issue there and is of high priority.
All right, we have one written question if we want to take that. How do you ensure the reliability and security of mobile communication and sensor networks in seaports, especially in the face of potential cyber attacks and natural disasters?
Martin, is that something for you? Maybe?
Yes, I can try to answer this. So when we just look into how things get connected, then usually these operations are behind the firewall, right? So they are in the demilitarized zone. So connecting themselves itself is not, let's say, the biggest point of attention here, but to keep the demilitarized zone demilitarized, that of course requires a continuous investment into, latest software updates, understanding, the vulnerabilities, doing continuous audits, and just having also the expertise in the IT department to defend that successfully.
May I add something here? It's not only security that we mentioned. Another major issue is data privacy. Because as we said, large volumes of data are being generated, have to be safeguarded. And there is this European policy that says data privacy even before security, yeah? So we have to have this into mind as well.
Ansis?
Time is up, but one comment on the security part. I think it is important. I mean, you cannot say it's not important. The thing maybe is that it's for transportation is not a standalone thing, but in order to be, or whatever, for technology to succeed, security is kind of the explicit thing. You have to prove that whatever you do with your information, others' information within your network is safe. And we discussed, like behind the panel, that let's say a ship, the port systems, and then the ship. So each and every thing is unique legal entity, and each has their rules. And maybe you can provide a fantastic 5G network, but from the point of regulatory framework for the ship or the particular shipping company, they will not connect to your network just because of the security requirements. And that's something at the regulatory level, standardization, and also some proof that your technology is safe and secure.
Excellent. I think we've run over, haven't we, Ansis?
Oh, but this was an excellent discussion, so you all deserve a loud round of applause to Nikolaus, Lukasz, Timo, Martin, Ansis, and of course Rob for the excellent moderation of this panel.